I'd say there definitely is a bit of a mismatch between the number of DAOs and the number of DAO wrappers. There's far fewer DAO wrappers than there are DAOs. And I actually think maybe that's fine. There probably should be more wrappers than there currently are, just given the amounts of financial assets that can be in some DAOs and yet are unprotected. But, if a DAO wants to be completely naked and unwrapped, if it works for them, then so be it. It's a choice for the DAO. More broadly, though, I think if we take a step back, I think there's been a lot of hype and excitement on DAOs. It's part of that general Web3 urge towards the new, which sometimes is just hype, but other times is that kind of natural creativity and sense of innovation that I think you see in people in the sector. What that does mean, though, is people can sometimes uncritically adopt, they can ignore the lessons of the past and uncritically adopt certain, bad practices. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a history nerd. History and politics is my undergrad degree. I get the distinct sense of a lot of the DAO projects that have emerged over the long while that people are just like, yeah, bro, one man, one vote. It'll be awesome. It'll be fine. It'll be decentralized radical democracy, which is cool, but there's a bit of a history of that. And lo and behold, bare majoritarian democracies where maybe some people hold all of the tokens, two guys hold all of the tokens and actually, the rest of the token holders. So it can lead to problems and that can lead to the collapse of projects. So I think we're still working as an industry and as a subsector, we're still working that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing about DAOs as well, that you have this layer of transparency, right? But not everyone knows how to do the proper analysis of a DAO, right? Because you want to know who is owning the governance tokens. Are they all concentrated in one wallet or a few wallets, right? And that gives you kind of a clue of how transparent and how democratic is the DAO. So again, it's kind of interesting, again, from a history perspective, from a political perspective, to understand the importance of democracy in this case. And I feel like DAOs are championed by the idea of democracy, democratizing everything, decentralizing everything. And I think this is what's really driving the DAO industry. But then when it comes to SPVs, from a corporate perspective, I feel like from an SPV perspective, it adds a lot of transparency and clarity in decision making. It globalizes access. So, instead of taking decisions behind boardrooms, you're actually enabling all the investors collectively to take votes individually without having to hire a proxy, or instead of having minority shareholders with no voting power and then majority shareholders having vote power, everyone has their vote counted. So I feel like there's a lot of moving parts are happening with DAOs, but I still don't see the mass adoption that I expected it would have by 2025. And that's sometimes I ask, why is that? Is it because, is there an uncertainty on how effective these DAO wrappers are? Is that a reason? Have they been tested by courts in cases and controversies?
Well, yes, a good leading question there. I think, firstly, so there is fundamentally still a lot of uncertainty, right? There's been a few cases, but not very many. The Ooki DAO case is one of the ones that people refer to a lot, and that did highlight what goes wrong if you don't have a wrapper. In that particular case, a US court found the members of Ooki DAO that they breached a particular US Exchange Commodities Act, I think it was, and they decided that it was an unincorporated association, I think it was, and that each of them were all jointly, and each of the token holders were jointly and separately liable. Now, major drama. If you're one of those token holders who is possibly just minding your own business and happened to have a token sitting in the wallet and hadn't thought about it very much, catastrophe. So that's a really good use case for the DAOs. But on the flip side, actually, there isn't that much case law. Even the Cayman Islands, which I'd say is the big daddy of the jurisdictions as far as DAO wrapper goes, so far, may change. There isn't really much case law, in fact, any, I think, on the foundations and their use as DAOs. So there is this prevailing uncertainty, and I think that does stop some people. What I also think is we haven't really, as of yet, created too many standardized typologies, there's the DAO wrapper, and that lends itself to certain things. But if you want to have a DAO for this purpose or that purpose or this purpose, there's the wrapper. But then there's there's your internal subgroups or committees, whatever you want to call them. There's questions around the quorum for voting. I think often a lot of that stuff possibly just insufficiently templatized, and that means people have to spend a lot of time thinking through what's going on. Because you have to come back to that question, why do you want the DAO?